Okay, so now we need to get our test passing. So you're going to solve one error at a time. So the error it's throwing is that it can't find the user. So um, let's sort that out. So therefore, let's construct it. Okay, that's still going to throw an error on us, but just to be sure. So just to demonstrate, you solve one error at a time. So we're going to get a different error this time. And it says the class user cannot be found. Okay, and it's looking for it in its Bootstrap folder. Now we don't want to Bootstrap. We don't want to create our classes in the Bhat folder, so we need to add an autoloader. So if I go to the composer.json and I replace it with my updated composer JSON. So I've added some other things here as well. So I've added a project name, a description, type. I've added license as proprietary. I've added myself as an author, and said that the minimum stability is stable. That's not entirely true at the moment, but we'll leave it as that at the moment. And then I've added an autoloader of hello world with the source folder. So obviously, and the next thing I need to do is I need to add a source folder, and within my source folder I'm going to add a user class, so user.php, and then in my user class I am going to give myself a namespace of hello world. The class is user. Okay, so now I need to update my composer JSON file. So if I go into Docker, and so that's a little utility script that gets rid of Docker exec, which I've put in my bash profile. I'm whizzing through this a bit now because it's not about the PHP, as we've said, it's about the process. So I'm not really gonna. I'm gonna just whiz through. So and then so it's Docker. Okay, so that's writing my new. It's updating my dependencies. It's going to write my autoload files in a second. So it's finished updating the dependencies. Yeah, so it's generated the autoload file and it's written the lock file. So if I come out of this, if I run my tool again, this time it won't tell me that it can't find the class. It will tell me it can't find the class. Now, why is that then? So we've got my source folder, I've got user, I've got my composer.json file, I've got my autoloader, it's hello world, and user is hello world, namespace is user, hello world. What's going on? Autoload, hello world, source. Ah, I know why. So we've created our user, but we haven't said that we're going to actually use it. So right, so we'll say use oops. Right, so use hello world user. Now it will tell me that it won't tell me it can't find the class. It'll say it's called to an undefined method. So now we're allowed to, because we've solved the error we've got. We now solve the next error that bhelp tells us about, which means that we've got an undefined method of name. So we're going to add class public function, and it doesn't need any parameters. And you don't get it to return real data. You're only fixing one error at a time. Okay, all it has to do is return something at the moment. So it's going to refer foobar, because you only solve one error at a time. So public function of foobar. Okay, so then it's telling us we've got a syntax error, unexpected bracket. Public function, because I didn't give it a name, did I? That's silly of me. Public function name. And then there we go. So, given that my username is the world, now that's a passing test, even though it isn't testing world. And once you've got a passing test, you move on. Now that we know that that isn't actually true, don't we? So now, once you've got green, you head to red. Okay. So, and I'll go on to explain that in a moment. Once you hit, it's a cyclical process. So once you've got a passing test, you're then trying to create a failing test, and then you make a passing test and you create a failing test. And it's a cyclical process that writes your code. And that's why it's test-driven development. Okay. So I shall hand back to the presentation.